As a wholesale provider of VoIP services, we used to see 20 to 30 intrusion attempts per day. Each of those, maybe 1,000, in some cases were 10,000 events in scale. Thankfully, none of them were successful. Our customers, typically the smaller ITSPs, also see a substantial number of intrusion attempts, and unfortunately, in some cases, they have been successful. There was an unfortunate night some months ago where 3 Simwood customers for voice services who were hosted on other networks were independently compromised in the same night. That was a very expensive night for them, and we recognised that we needed to do something, firstly to protect our own network, but also to at least offer these customers the opportunity to protect their own network. So we set about building a solution that not only offered DDoS protection in the event of a black swan DDoS event, but also offered 24/7 continuous protection against typical intrusion attempts. In doing so, we quickly discovered that no solution on the market was remotely suitable for the VoIP business. VoIP traffic looks like a DDoS attack, so any off-the-shelf DDoS hardware and any commodity DDoS service will filter out VoIP traffic. It will view it as a DDoS and be entirely useless. We needed to build a solution that could handle VoIP traffic whilst offering a level of protection. I believe we've done that, and I believe it's unique. Our solution is multi-layer. We recognised, speaking to vendors, that no one solution, even when tuned for VoIP, could do everything we needed it to do. And every vendor told us that their solution was the only one that could do X or Y. So we concluded none of them could do everything, and they could only work in combination. We also added in a few layers to our stack that were typically Simwood, typically approaching the problem from the opposite side. At the very front of our stack is a layer that we call IP reputation. We have a multi-level partnership with ThreatStop, who are the leader and the innovator in the IP reputation space. What is IP reputation? We think of it as credit referencing for the internet. So at the very edge of the network, a source IP address seeks to gain access, and we consider, do we want to admit this IP address now? And that decision is based on their reputation, what that IP address has done in the past, and more importantly, what it's done recently. It could be completely innocent and we'll let it through, but it could have a track record of disrupting other networks, in which case we won't. And that sits right at the front of our solution. We were the first company in the world to deploy IP reputation in that sense. To my knowledge, we're the only company in the world to utilise it in any form of DDoS mitigation. Our partnership with ThreatStop is, as I say, multiple level. So as well as being a consumer of their data, we're also a source of data for ThreatStop through our darknets and through our honeypots, more of which later. Beneath the IP reputation layer, we have a network behaviour analysis layer. So all traffic, all the time, passing through the system is analysed, and it computes tens of thousands of different metrics for every source and destination IP address, every source and destination port, and it establishes trends and patterns, both time of day, day of week. And in the event of a source or destination address deviating from that established pattern, it will start to put the brakes on. In simple terms, the goal of that layer is to take the heat out of a flood event. So if we suddenly see a flood of traffic from several thousand or even a couple of IP addresses that deviates from the pattern, it will put the brakes on, it will slow it down, it will avoid it causing disruption. Beneath the network behaviour analysis layer in the Simwood stack, we have a layer that comprises stateful firewall and intrusion prevention. That is always on, 24/7, 365, analysing all traffic going through it. As well as performing further behavioural analysis, further source and origin analysis, it is performing content analysis on all traffic going through. looking for established signatures of known threats, but also providing zero-day protection against new attacks. As a stateful firewall, it also enables us to offer a very high-level filtration of customer traffic. For example, if a customer is only offering voice services on their equipment, then at that layer we won't let through FTP traffic, for example, unless they want it. The Simwood Darknet is a block of IP address space that to all intents and purposes doesn't exist. It is unissued and therefore shouldn't receive any traffic. If it does receive traffic, there's no services on the end to respond to it. But what we are doing is passing all traffic to that block through our complete DDoS mitigation stack. And that enables us to analyze everything that is passing through. Now, why would unissued IP addresses receive any traffic at all? There's a couple of explanations. It could be research traffic. It could be a misconfiguration. Actually, when you start to analyze the traffic, you realize it's neither of those, and it is generally of malintent. Our Darknet captures traffic 24/7, 365, and we run it through multiple layers of analysis, and that enables us to build up a real good picture of the level of noise on the internet. And what we find is a consistent level of traffic across any IP address in the Darknet. It isn't as if one IP address receives lots and others receive none. Right down to a 60-minute window in time, all IP addresses in the Darknet receive traffic. And on a daily basis, the Darknet receives hundreds of thousands of security events. And we consider this to represent the noise that any IP address, any public IP address on the internet would receive. All of the data collected through the Darknet feeds right the way back through into our security services. We're a source of data for ThreatStop, so the target source address, the source and target ports, and various other metrics of the traffic are analysed and fed back into ThreatStop, which along with other sources of data are combined to build the IP reputation feed that sits at the front of our own DDoS stack. The Simwood honeypots are there to capture and analyse targeted attacks, whereas the Darknet aims to analyse general noise from malware-infected workstations and the like. The honeypots aim to target specific attacks on specific services. In our case, as a wholesale voice provider, the typical targeted attack we will see will be an attempt to compromise a SIP gateway or a SIP proxy. The honeypots nestle amongst the production Simwood equipment, and to anybody in the outside world, they are the production equipment. However, unlike that other equipment, they're specifically configured to be easily attacked. However, where they are different is that in the event of being attacked, they are completely impotent, and what appears to be happening isn't happening. But also everything that is done to them is recorded and analysed, right through to the extent that somebody could consider that they have compromised one of our voice gateways and could be routing call traffic through it. Those calls will appear to complete. However, we will be recording the complete IP history of that attack, as well as even recording any voice that is passed over those calls. Just like the Darknet, that feeds straight back through into our IP reputation layer. However, unlike the Darknet, which is general noise, the honeypot is very specific, is very targeted, and is inherently lower volume. But any data coming out of the honeypot is arguably of higher value.